September 23, 2016. Memorial of St. Pius of Pietrelcina, priest.
A reading from the book of Ecclesiastes. There is an appointed time for everything, and a time for everything under the heavens. A time to be born, and a time to die. A time to plant, and a time to uproot the plant. A time to kill, and a time to heal. A time to tear down, and a time to build. A time to weep, and a time to laugh. A time to mourn, and a time to dance. A time to scatter stones, and a time to gather them. A time to embrace, and a time to be far from embraces. A time to seek, and a time to lose. A time to keep, and a time to cast away. A time to rend, and a time to sow. A time to be silent, and a time to speak. A time to love, and a time to hate. A time of war, and a time of peace. What advantage has the worker from his toil? I have considered the task that God has appointed for the sons of men to be busied about. He has made everything appropriate to its time, and has put the timeless into their hearts, without man's ever discovering, from beginning to end, the work which God has done. The word of the Lord.
The responsorial psalm. The response is, "Blessed be the Lord, my rock." Blessed be the Lord, my rock, my mercy and my fortress, my stronghold, my deliverer, my shield in whom I trust. Blessed be the Lord, my rock. Lord, what is man that you notice him, the Son of Man that you take thought of him? Man is like a breath, his days like a passing shadow. Blessed be the Lord, my rock.
A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Luke. Once when Jesus was praying in solitude and the disciples were with him, he asked them, "Who do the crowds say that I am?" They said in reply, "John the Baptist," others, "Elijah," still others, "One of the ancient prophets has arisen." Then he said to them, "But who do you say that I am?" Peter said in reply, "The Christ of God." He rebuked them and directed them not to tell this to anyone. He said, "The Son of Man must suffer greatly, and be rejected by the elders, the chief priests, and the scribes, and be killed, and on the third day be raised." The Gospel of the Lord.
September 23rd, the memorial of St. Pius of Pietrelcina, whom we also know as Padre Pio. The first reading comes from Ecclesiastes, Koheleth 3, 1-11. Many of us who grew up in the 60s and 70s remember this as a song that was sung. There's an appointed time for everything. A time to be born, a time to die, a time to plant, a time to uproot the plant. That God has a plan for everything, but we don't know it. So we should try to discern the signs of the time and follow along. We should be available. We should be generous in our willingness to follow wherever God leads us. There's an old joke. How do you make God laugh? Tell him your plans. Now that joke is attributed to St. Teresa of Avila, but it probably came from her Jewish ancestors. Teresa belonged to a family of Jews who had converted to Catholicism. And it's an old Jewish saying. How do you make God laugh? Tell him your plans. Because when we think we have it all together, when we think we have it all planned out, God has a way of throwing a wrench into the works. Not because God wants to be mischievous, but God is in charge. And therefore, the best we can do is try to discern what God wants and go with the flow. To have a proper sense of timing, a proper sense of responding to those invitations that come, especially in unexpected ways. The Gospel is from Luke 9, 18-22. Jesus is praying in solitude, and this is another one of those examples in Luke where Jesus prays before something important happens. It's very common in Luke because Jesus wants to do the will of the Father. And by praying, he's making his will one with that of the Father. He asked the disciples, "Who do people say that I am?" Their response, John the Baptist, Elijah, one of the prophets, says, "Who do you say that I am?" Peter says, "You're the Christ of God." Remember, the word Christ is the Greek version of the word Messiah, which means the anointed one. He rebukes them, telling them not to say anything, because he doesn't want people knowing that he's the Messiah. They will misunderstand his mission. They'll interpret Messiah in terms of conquering hero, king, defeater of Rome. Rather, he defines his mission as being the Son of Man, who must suffer greatly, be rejected, killed, and raised on the third day. He's taking lessons found in the Songs of a Suffering Servant and applying them to himself. Those 4 poems that are found in the second part of the book of the prophet Isaiah, chapters 40 to 55, speak about a mysterious figure who would suffer for the sins of the people, be buried, and then raised from the dead. The sages of Israel asked, "Who is this suffering servant?" And none of them really came up with a totally satisfactory identification. Some said it's Israel, some said it's Jeremiah, some said it's the author of those poems. None of those identifications quite fit. It's Jesus himself who takes these words and applies them to himself, because this defines what his mission is. His mission as Messiah is to be the Son of Man who would suffer and die. And may God bless us.